Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Sorticus. Growing partisan distrust, nuclear hot rhetoric, and accelerating political violence. Do you think Election Day 2020 will be this era's Fort Sumter? I pray it won't be, but I fear it will be. It's a great question. We've talked a couple times before about the idea of a second civil war and how it seems to me to be just impossible, not unthinkable, like there's no way it could happen. I believe people could get angry enough for it to happen. I just can't imagine how it would happen because in the Civil War, you had all of the people who believed one way about slavery all living together next to each other, and then what people that disagreed with slavery were all living next to each other. And there was a clear dividing line. You could have slaves in that state, you couldn't have them here. And so when the issue of slavery came up and when it looked like the Union was growing and the number of non-slave states were continuing to come into the Union, and the states that eventually, the Democrats basically that were the Confederacy, just decided it's just going to get worse and worse for us, so we're going to leave. We're taking our slaves with us. There was not just this gigantic intellectual division, which we have here today, and not just this rhetoric and hatred, which we have here today, but people were geographically separated on a clearly drawn line. This side is the slavery line, and this side is the non-slavery line. What I guess was the Mason-Dixon line. I'm not sure. Anyway, how you have a civil war? Well, now that I think about it, America's Civil War, as everything else, was exceptional because America's Civil War was fought like a Napoleonic War. It was a land battle of armies and campaigns with artillery, fought on battlefields away from cities. We're going to launch an incursion into Maryland and we're going to ride through Georgia. But basically it was armies in uniform on the move going from point A to point B and fought very much like a conventional war. And I was going to say, I don't know how you can have a civil war when everybody who's trying to kill each other living in the same place. But then I realized that's how most civil wars work, right? I mean, that's how it works. It's what happened in Bosnia. It's what happened with in Rwanda. A lot of civil wars become not only civil wars; they become genocide, and the people who lose are just killed. The Russian Civil War was fought that way, and so was the English Civil War to some degree. But yeah, ours was a little different. I don't know. Look, when we talk about civil war as opposed to intense disagreement, we're talking about war, and war is shooting. If you're going to say it's a rhetorical war, I'm not accusing you of this, mind you, but if you're going to say it's a rhetorical war, then it's not really war. I don't know how the half of the country that is opposed to owning guns goes to a shooting war against the half of the country that does believe in shooting guns and owns an awful lot of them. I don't know how that works. It would be like the Confederacy being pacifists, proud of the fact that there's not a single rifle anywhere in the Confederacy. And this is what makes me sleep a little easier at night. If it was the other way around with the guns, I'm sure I'd probably be out of here. And this is something that the left doesn't understand, or maybe they do. Maybe they do understand it. They just hate it because it's so effective. But we got the guns, and they don't. And it's not that they can't have them. It's just that they don't want to use them. That's fine with me. But when rhetoric explodes into violence, and violence becomes serious, now you're talking about a firepower issue. You're talking about, if you are talking about the kind of like bloodthirsty, kill all the conservatives, Civil War kind of thing, then there's one team that can defend themselves, and there's another that won't. Eric Blake says, why do you think they're so big on gun control? Absolutely. They never talk about crime control. They talk about gun control. They don't want to take They don't care about the guns that kill 8,000 black Americans in Chicago and other places like that. They don't care about that. They want the guns taken away from people like us who have our guns in order to protect ourselves from our own government. That's who they want to take the guns away from. I have to tell you, one of the best movies I've ever seen, and without question one of the three most disturbing movies I've ever seen, is a science fiction movie called Children of Men. And it's about something very much like a civil war in England. There are no more children. It hasn't been a child born for 20 years or something. And then all of a sudden this one woman has a baby, and they're trying to get her out of here. And the reason that is so chilling to me is because the depiction of a Western modern city in the throes of civil war, it's just awful. It was really, 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 really awful. Yeah, people are talking about this movie called The Hunt. Somebody told me about this. Who was I talking to about this? I don't remember. But apparently it's a movie coming out where it was with Shelley this morning, I think, or yesterday. She said there's a movie coming out where rich liberals go hunting Trump supporters, the deplorables, hunting them down, kidnapping them, taking them someplace, and then using them for sport, for their amusement. And she said, "Isn't that terrible?" And needless to say, I haven't seen the movie. And somebody, Eric Blake, says the deplorables fight back. I like it even better. But I said, "Are you sure that the Trump supporters are the people being hunted?" And they say yes. And I say, "Good. That's good. If the left is all about victimhood, then if they're making a movie where Trump supporters are the victims, awesome." I don't know what it's going to be. If I had to guess, and I bet pretty hard about this, I suspect it's going to be one of those kind of, revenge fantasy things like stabbing Caesar and Julius Caesar in New York and having Julius Caesar dressed like Donald Trump. It's just going to be one of these little petty little kind of, oh, I wish we could do that for real kind of thing. Okay, well, you can't. And now you know. Now you know why we're not joking about the guns. It's not really to protect us against criminals, although it does that. And it's not really to protect us against the British coming back or the Chinese or the Russians or anybody else. The really main reason we got the guns is to protect ourselves from liberals, from left-wingers. And they haven't figured that out yet. Or maybe they have. In any event, that's that. It's 7:55. I think we're getting close to 2 hours here, so I believe I'm going to wrap this baby up. Wrap it up. Put a bow on it and mail it to YouTube. I think it's time for me to go home. Anyway, yeah, says Dave Big Booty says the Second Amendment isn't there in case the deer turn on us. I remember saying something like that a couple times in speeches, in question and answer afterwards at speaking events, and people would say, well, what do you feel about the First Amendment and all this other stuff? And I would say, look, I don't have a pistol under my bed because I think that a deer is going to come through the window and kill us all. So this hunting thing is a bad strategy on our part to say that, well, we should have these guns because of hunting. No, it's just why are you even letting them have that argument? No. What do you have the gun for then? Is it for hunting? No, it's not for hunting. It's to kill bad guys. What do you think? It's to kill murderers and rapists who are in my house at 2 o'clock in the morning. And hopefully I won't have to kill them. Hopefully the sound of the thing being racked will be enough. But if it's not, then there you go. And when you come out and tell a leftist, I've got the guns to kill people. What? Yeah, well, obviously that's what it's for. What do you? Let's stop being children. C.P. Tomes is talking about the white hot light of freedom, and it's actually the bright white light of freedom. I think if it's the term I was using, I love it. So Eric Blake says, Lefty, why do you need an AR-15? Us, to protect us from you. Yes, exactly, precisely. That's exactly right. Well, we don't mean to do anything, really. Why don't we just stab him in the heart? And you don't mean to do anything because um, you know who's got the ammo. Yeah, that's simple. Alrighty, I'm going to wrap up this goat rodeo, and that'll do it for this edition of the Stratosphere Lounge. Billy's getting tired, starting to fade a little bit, and starting to get more confused than usual. And I can hear the janitor approaching, and this time I'm going to let him in. So, thanks very much for joining us. This show is made possible by the paying members at BillWhittle.com. If you're not one of them, we would love to have you. Thank you so much for being with us. Sorry we missed you last week. Martin, I owe you 2 questions next week. And until then, you guys just be careful out there. We'll see you next week here on the Stratosphere Lounge.